Hi, I'm Tim Franz, professor of psychology at St. John Fisher, and I'm with my colleague Lauren Vicker, communication professor emeritus at St. John Fisher. We're with Making Team Projects Work. We have a video here to talk about how to do peer evaluation in student projects. You can use this yourself, or you can show it to your students. Use it in any way that suits you. Next, Lauren's going to give a little introduction to this video.
So this first part is actually for the professor. And we ask the question, do you require peer evaluations in your team projects? And if you don't, you absolutely should. One of the things we know from talking to students is that many of them really hate team projects. And that's because they're afraid that other people are going to free ride on the work of just a few people, and they're going to get credit for work that they did not do. And so peer evaluations are really important to prevent this from happening. But we have found out that students, we can't assume that they know exactly how to do this. We have given students opportunities to do peer evaluations, and we find that they're overwhelmingly positive because they don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, or they pick on one particular thing that they don't like about an individual. So we have developed a system for training students to not only give, but also receive feedback appropriately. Your role in this process is going to be to pick an evaluation form that works for you and where you are in your team projects, usually something that includes both numerical scales and places to give individual comments, and also to make sure that you give this to your students and collect that information a few times during the course of the project so they get used to that process. So that's what we have for the professor.
So you might ask yourself, why should I be doing peer evaluation? And peer evaluation is really important for students. Number one, the most important reason is it makes for better team projects. When you're regularly evaluating one another and using that information to get better, your team project will be better as well. Number two is your professor looks at the end product, and that's all they can look at. They can't judge who does what. So this is really good information for your professor so they can see who's putting in more effort and maybe who needs to put in more. And number three is when you go forward in your career, you will be expected in many organizations to give peer evaluation feedback. 360-degree feedback is used often when you're in an organization. And so this is a skill that you'll have going forward. Now, there's also some really important things that happen when we don't give feedback. Number one, poor behavior is tolerated. Poor performance ignored or tolerated is poor performance encouraged. If you don't tell people what they're doing and how they can get better, how do they know that they need to improve? And what this means is teams lose out. They don't get all those benefits of the different backgrounds and knowledge and skills that people bring to the team. I'm sure that you've seen this happen before in a team project where people get mad, they get frustrated, and that emotion can blow over and really affect the team and how people think about teamwork in the future. And finally, your grades can be affected if you are not getting your team together really focused and having everybody do what they're supposed to do. So Lauren is next going to talk about the steps for giving feedback.
So you may be surprised to learn that the first step is a self-evaluation. And many of us are not used to doing that, but it's important to, first of all, get used to the feedback form, look at what the criteria are, and rate yourself honestly about how you think you're doing as a team member and how you think you could improve. Then you move on to taking your form and evaluating the other people on the team. And again, you've got a feedback rating system so you can give people numerical scores, but also individual comments to the team members and to the team as a whole. This gets submitted to your instructor so that the feedback is anonymous, and that means that it remains confidential and only you will see the comments specifically about you. And the same thing will happen with the other people in the team. And as you probably heard in the introduction, we recommend to your professor that they do this a few times so you get used to the process. So maybe sometime early on in the beginning of the project, when you get into the middle of the project, and then as you get toward the very end when you're ready to submit that project. So this is what happens when you give feedback submitted on a written form that is anonymous and confidential.
So your professor will be taking that information and getting it back to you in a summary format. So it remains anonymous and confidential, but there are times in your team where you do need to talk directly to other students. You're going to have situations where people aren't pulling their weight, and you have to give them feedback to their face rather than that anonymous and confidential form. And so the number one thing whenever you're giving feedback is to ask permission. Some great words for you. Is it okay if I give you some feedback? If they say no, say, well, how about tomorrow? If they say no again, then you might want to move on and use that anonymous form. Number two, when talking directly to other students, is praise in public. People often feel really good when they've succeeded at something. Let them know. Recognize those good efforts. The other side of that is if somebody needs to get better, if you do need to give some negative feedback, that shouldn't happen in front of the team. That should be done privately. Maybe after class, maybe when you're walking out, maybe ask them to hang with you for a few minutes before leaving class and talk to them. Again, ask permission, and then use some words that help them to see that they might be making a mistake. Like, do you realize that you kept interrupting someone? This is a really good way to do it. Don't say you always do that. Say there are times when you interrupt someone. And then finally, end on a positive note. You'll hear people talk about the feedback sandwich, positive, negative, positive. That really doesn't work real well, but feedback should always be focused on the future. When you think about driving your car, the windshield is big and the rearview mirror is very small. You want to think about moving forward. Your topics should be how can we get better and go forward. Big windshield, lots of focus on getting better and the positive, very little focus on what happened in the past. And so Lauren is going to talk next about the second part, which is not just giving feedback, but receiving feedback too.
And we have found that a lot of our colleagues do work on peer evaluations, but they never talk to the student about what happens when you receive feedback. And just like Tim was talking about when you're giving feedback face to face, you've got to be open to getting feedback. You have to be in a mindset to think that there are things that I might be able to improve on as a team member or maybe as the team leader. And so you've got to be open to receiving that kind of information. And if you're ever not, you should wait until a time when you can get used to it, get calm and be open. Then listen to what people have to say or read their comments carefully. Think about them and reflect on those things. Don't just skim it. I know sometimes teaching evaluations for professors, we just kind of skim and say, oh, they like that, they didn't like that. But it's good to look at the comments that someone has given you and look at those carefully. And it's okay to ask for clarification and examples. So if you said, well, I didn't do a good job meeting my deadlines, give me an example of a time when I held the team up by not getting my work in on time, on the time that was set by the team. Above all, avoid affective conflict. Don't explode. It can be a tendency to do that when people make personal comments about us, especially in a negative light, that you may explode, and nothing good can come of getting so upset and bringing emotion into it. So we're always looking at constructive ways and to focus on ways that we can improve. And give the person giving feedback the benefit of the doubt. They don't see you all the time. They might not know what you're doing behind the scenes. They may not know what personal issues you have that are affecting your performance on the team. Maybe they need to know that, but it's important to give them the benefit of the doubt as you are receiving feedback. Now, there's one other important thing to think about in receiving feedback. Tim?
One real good way to get feedback and give feedback is working together as a team to conduct ongoing team reflections. And really, the focus of these, and you can simply ask this question, sit down, take 5 minutes. Question number one, how are we doing as a team? And questions two and three, what are we doing well? And what can we do better? Now, whenever you're working on team feedback, the goal is to focus on the team. You're not calling people out. There should be no naming, no shaming. I wouldn't say, hey, Lauren, this is what you're doing wrong. But you would say, hey, there are times where we can keep to our deadlines better. And by the way, it's me who has trouble with deadlines and not Lauren. So, but it's focused on what in general the team is doing well and where they can do better. This is an important part of team development. Now, Lauren is going to pull this all together with some final reminders.
So, as we noted in the beginning, giving and receiving feedback is hard. It's hard work, but it is the way that we grow as a team and individual members of the team. Remember to praise in public, criticize in private. And you can make this skill really work for you. Remember, one of the number one skills that employers are looking for is the ability to work in teams. And if you can talk about this in other classes, at your job, at your internship, when you go on a job interview and say, I've learned how to effectively do peer evaluations. I know how to give feedback, and I also know how to receive feedback from other people and do that effectively. That is going to be a really important skill for you to be able to discuss. And always, always, always end on a positive note. And with that, our positive message is that this is about the end of the video.
So really, these kinds of little things will make your team experience better and make other students more likely to want to be a part of a team in the future. And it's something that employers are looking for. So if you have any questions, if you need more information, if you're looking for something specific, please reach out. You can get to our website using that QR code. The URL is up there. And we do actually answer our emails when people send information to us, ask us questions. So please feel free to reach out. Again, I'm Tim. This is my colleague Lauren, and we're with Making Team Projects Work.